Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Tobin Ryan, Stan Ryan, and Governor Scott Walker.
Driving down the street today, I saw a sign for lemonade. They were the cutest kids I'd ever seen in this front yard. As they handed me my glass, smiling, thinking to myself.
Thank you.
Man, what a picture.
Thank you. Please sit down. Everybody's got seats. I feel like the Brewers bat boy who gets to run out on the field with the team. And what an honor it is for me to be on the same stage with our fearless, infallible leader, Scott Walker. On behalf of Paul and Jana and our family, we can't thank you enough. The support, the outpouring of support has been so phenomenal. From our family's perspective, from the bottom of our heart, we can't thank you enough. And I want to introduce my brother Stan, our older brother. If Paul thought I picked on him a lot growing up, I learned it from that guy. 2 months ago, I can't believe it was 2 months ago, Mitt Romney asked Paul to join him on a mission to restore prosperity for all Americans. And a lot's happened in the last 2 months. I used to have dark hair. I'm hoping after last Thursday's performance by Paul, though, some of that color will start coming back. How do you think he did? I tell you what, after those first 2 debates, has there ever been a more clear choice, a better case made for a different path, a better future for America? And it's going to happen when we elect Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. I was proud of Paul's performance. As a brother, as brothers, we were very proud. His command of the issues was obvious. But I think a mother, our mom Betty, only the way a mother can say it, said it best. And that is, Paul behaved the way he was raised. He listened. He was respectful. He conducted himself with dignity. He conducted himself the way a leader does. And it's not speeches, it's not theatrics that get results. It's leadership, and that's what we're going to get with Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. And when you think of leadership, you think of Scott Walker. We love being with Scott because everywhere Paul goes around the country, he's introduced as a guy from the small town Janesville. Scott grew up in Delavan, where the big city was Janesville. And I tell you what, there must have been something in the water. Paul and Scott growing up in the same community with the skill set, the vision, the passion, the leadership qualities that they both have. I'm not sure what it was in the makeup of our community, but who would have guessed that we'd have 2 such phenomenal leaders that are going to be with us today. So let me just announce and introduce our fearless governor, a great friend, a guy who is serving as a model for the rest of the United States, your Governor Scott Walker.
Thanks. Good morning, Wisconsin. Thanks, Tobin. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, it feels like just like growing up. Please grab a seat. Grab a seat. We want to hear from the main attraction. I've just got a couple quick things. It was just like growing up. You're right. I kid you guys, I kid Paul this, that for us growing up in Delavan, a big night on the town was going to Janesville, the Shakey's and the mall, because they actually had a mall. So it was a good time. But first of all, I got to ask a question, and seeing the jersey right in the front, it makes me say, how about that game last night, huh? I'm sure that Paul's got a thing or two to say about that as well, but I got to tell you, all week long, I'm an optimist. You got to be in my job. I'm an optimist, right? So all week long, not only here in Wisconsin, but I talk to people all across the country, and how your Packers going to do. They're playing that undefeated team, the Texans. They're going to be down in Houston. I said, no, I'm an optimist. This is comeback time. This is the time when Aaron Rodgers and everybody steps up. This is comeback time. We're going to be back on track. I wish I'd said it's comeback time and Aaron Rodgers is going to throw 6 TDs, because I would have looked pretty good in Vegas. But I said, this is comeback time. And the Packers didn't let us down. And you know what? America needs a comeback. You know, sadly, we know it across the state and across the country. We've got 23 million of our fellow Americans looking for work today. We've got unprecedented amounts of unemployment and poverty and challenges. We've got a debt that continues to grow every second that's going to put our kids and our grandkids in just the kind of position we don't want them to be in the future. And we've had over the last 4 years deficit after deficit after deficit budget. We need a comeback. We need a comeback in America, and we've got just the team to do that with Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan. You see, Tobin was right. A couple months ago, when we all turned on the TV that Saturday morning and saw Mitt Romney out in front of the USS Wisconsin in Norfolk, Virginia, we knew then, we knew even before he made the announcement, that Mitt Romney had what it took to be the president. I mean, think about it. This guy had a career in the private sector where he turned failing businesses around and saved thousands of jobs that people have today because of Mitt Romney. We knew a decade ago, when he turned the Olympics around, that this was a guy who could come in and turn things around for the better and made us proud. And we knew, most importantly, as a governor, he took a state that had a major budget deficit, turned it around without raising taxes in a way that helped the private sector create more jobs in his state. We knew that Mitt Romney had the qualifications and the skill set needed to be the next president of the United States. But on that day, in front of the USS Wisconsin, when he announced the name of his running mate, Paul Ryan, we knew he didn't just have the skills and the qualifications. We knew he had the courage and the passion to be an exceptional president. America more than ever needs a comeback team, and America has got the team they need. They've got the skills and the qualifications. I got to tell you, I've known Mitt Romney for some time. I've been impressed with him, but when he picked Paul Ryan, there's not anyone else I know outside of Mitt himself that has more passion, more courage, more intelligence when it comes to turning things around and reforming government. But more important than that, I think all of you, I know his family knows it, but any of us who knew Paul over the years know, in or outside of politics, there's not a more decent person we could have on the ballot with Mitt Romney. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to the next Vice President of the United States, Paul Ryan.
Hey, everybody. Morning, everybody. Hey, Corey, how you doing? Good to see you guys. Hey guys, how are you doing? Good morning. Have a seat, everybody. I just want people in the back row to be able to see my Green Bay Packer tie. Hey, Dave, how are you doing? Good to see you. Nothing better than going to bed with 6 TDs under Aaron Rodgers' belt, huh? That was an awesome game. I got to tell you, to go down to Texas against a 5-0 team on the road and have that kind of performance, it reminds me of what it's going to look like on November the 6th. You know, not only did I wear my Packer tie about our enthusiasm, but I carry my phone with me, which is blaze orange and camouflage. That reminds me, after this election, I'm going to get to sit in a tree stand with my 10-year-old daughter for her fierce deer hunt after we have just elected Mitt Romney, the next president of the United States. Look at this. Hey, you got your Halloween costume already. That's awesome. You know what was great? It's so good to be home, by the way. You know, to go to Mass at your own parish, to watch Packers on TV, and we went out and got our kids' costumes yesterday. It is so fantastic to be home. It's great to be here on the road with my brothers, and it is great to be here with my friend, our governor, Scott Walker. Scott, we owe you. And let me say, thank you for coming out so early. Thank you for standing in the long lines. Thank you for being here with us today. Let's not forget, early voting starts pretty soon. So you can vote early. You can vote early absentee so that you can make sure we work on making phone calls and getting people to the polls. Because you know what we learned here in Wisconsin? We learned that men and women of conviction, I see Alberta Darling sitting right over there. I see Rebecca Clayfish sitting over there. We learned that if you say to people, here's who I am, this is what I believe, and this is what I'm going to do, in Wisconsin, we elect them, and then they go do it, and that's exactly what we're going to do for the United States of America. We're going to take on these challenges in this country. We're going to get the job done so we can get people back to work. That's what we've done here in Wisconsin. We learned how to do this. We have leadership. That's what we're demonstrating here in Wisconsin, leadership. Look at that debt clock over there. Look at how fast those numbers are running. When President Obama came into office, it was more than $5 trillion lower. The president came into office saying he would cut the deficit in half in his first term. He's given us 4 years of trillion-dollar deficits. He has added almost more public debt than almost all previous presidents combined. Not only do we have a string of broken promises, not only do we have a string of a lack of leadership, this debt is not only hurting our economy today, it is guaranteeing that these young kids who are getting their Halloween costumes, who are going to go out and trick-or-treating, have a diminished future. We have never done that in this country before. We have never knowingly given our kids an inferior standard of living, a diminished future. But that is exactly what we are doing by piling up this mountain of debt, by giving these deficits. And it takes leadership to confront this. That's what Mitt Romney and I are offering. We are not going to run away from these problems. We're going to run at these problems to solve these problems before they get out of our control. That's what leaders do. I want to thank Carroll University for hosting us here today. Go Pioneers. But I look at the state of play today. I look at the economy today. I look at the fact that half of all our recent college graduates are either not working in the field that they studied or are working at all. That is unacceptable. 23 million Americans struggling to find work. 15% of Americans living in poverty today. That's the highest rate in a generation. This is not acceptable. This is not what America looks like. We are on the wrong track. And the good news is, if we get ahead of our problems, if we tackle our problems before they tackle us, we can get America back on the right track. And these young kids coming out of school can come into an economy of opportunity, can come to an economy where they can make the most of their lives, because that's the American dream. That's what it's all about. Let's take a look at, I see a lot of familiar faces here. I've done over 500 town hall meetings in Wisconsin. So you know I'm a PowerPoint guy. So let me get into this a little bit if I could. There are monitors all around. Take a look at our debt. Now if you look at this debt here, it looks like a big mountain over on the left. That's World War II. We've had debt in America before. We've always had debt. People have debt. What matters is, how much debt do you have relative to your income? You only buy so much house to only take so much mortgage that you can cash flow based on your paycheck. It works the same way for countries as well. And sometimes you have a lot of debt. You know, Scott mentioned the USS Wisconsin. That was such a moment. My mom told me afterwards, my mom's from Fond du Lac, and she's born and raised there. Her dad was a Navy man. And so in World War II, they moved around quite a bit. And they got to go on the deck of a brand new ship for a family day, and that was on the USS Wisconsin out in San Francisco. So my mom was there as a little girl in World War II, and to be able to go out on that deck to represent our state was a great opportunity. But to think of what our veterans have done for our country, to think about what our World War II veterans and our veterans since, I see veterans around here because I see it on your hats. Thank you for giving us the freedom we have today. Thank you for your sacrifice. Thank you for what you've done for our country. I see one there. I see one over there. Thank you for what you've done. Oh. Now, take a look at that mountain there. That's World War II. We lent our government our money to fight and win World War II. Our debt got as high as the size of our economy. We borrowed a little more than 100% of our gross domestic product. And you can have high borrowing like that so long as it's temporary, so long as it's for a dedicated purpose, and you know it's going to go back down after that. And so that's what we did back then. We sold war bonds. Our citizens gave our government their money, plus they lent it to them to fight and win World War II, and then our debt went down after that. Look at where we are right now. This is what our government is telling us our debt is going to become. This is where we are headed. Our debt is scheduled to literally get off the charts. It's supposed to go to more than 2.5 times the size of our economy by the time my kids are my age. Janet and I live in Janesville. We live on the block we grew up on. We've got 3 kids who are 7, 9, and 10 years old. We know without a shred of doubt that we are consigning the next generation to this path of debt, that we're racking up so much bills in our generation that we're guaranteeing that they will not have a better future, that they will have a diminished future. That's unsustainable. We can't keep doing that. We have a moral obligation for the sake of our economy today, but for the sake of the next generation to secure the American dream for our children and our grandchildren. And that means leaders got to get ahead of this problem. Now, as I mentioned, we've had debt before. And usually we lent it to ourselves. Americans buying treasury bills to lend it to the American government, right? Well, back in 1970, we had a $283 billion debt. 6% of our debt was owned by foreigners, by foreign governments, meaning 94% was owned by Americans. We borrowed more money, the debt got bigger, and by 1990, our debt was $2.4 trillion. That's our public debt. That's how many bonds we have to sell. 19% of our debt was owned by foreign governments. So we still owed a majority of the money we borrowed to ourselves. Well, look at where we are today. Our public debt is so big that its public debt is $11 trillion. Our total debt's over $16 trillion. 48% of the money we borrow is from other countries. Countries like China, number one. Japan, number two. What this means is we have to go to other nations to borrow money from them to pay for our government today. We can't keep doing this. We lose our independence. We lose our sovereignty. It's pretty tough to stand up to China when they steal our intellectual property rights, when they subsidize their businesses to unfairly compete against ours, when they're our biggest banker. We need to get this debt under control so that America can be in control of its own destiny and its own financial future so that we can maintain our sovereignty and our own independence. That helps our economy as well. Take a look at your share of the debt. Now, I've been throwing trillions and billions and all of these things. What does this mean for individuals, for families? When President Obama came into office, he did inherit a tough situation. Problem is, he made things worse. Problem is when you see this most predictable crisis ahead of you, a debt crisis, what leaders do is they solve those problems. Here's what the president did. He didn't offer a solution. He waited for others like ourselves to offer ours, and then he just attacks. Then he runs negative campaigns. He distorts. The president has been going around the country lately saying he has a plan. You know, I found that kind of interesting. I attended one of his speeches where he mentioned this plan of his. And he said, I've got a plan to deal with this. We were like, great. He's got a plan. Let's start talking. Let's see his plan. We put ours on the table. Mitt Romney's put a lot of ideas on the table how to fix this problem. That's how you start problem solving. So we called his office, his budget office, and said, hey, can you send us the plan? We'd like to see it. The budget office said, well, they referred us over to the press secretary, and the press secretary sent us a copy of the speech. We asked the Congressional Budget Office, could you analyze the president's new plan to deal with the deficit? They said, it's a speech. We don't estimate speeches. That's the problem. The president gives lots of speeches, but he's not actually putting plans on the table. Leaders lead by putting specifics on the table, by saying, here's how I'm going to solve this problem, not by giving good speeches to make people think he's leading. That's the problem. And so when President Obama came into office, he inherited a difficult situation. Both political parties contributed to this mess, Republicans and Democrats. You see, what's happened is decades of politicians from both political parties made lots of empty promises to people to get elected. And pretty soon, if we have a debt crisis like that which is now plaguing Europe, these empty promises become broken promises. That's what's happening in Europe today. They're slashing health and retirement benefits for current seniors. They're cranking up taxes. They're going back into a recession. And young people coming out of school, young people coming on to the prime of their life have no opportunities. The unemployment rate of youth in Italy and Greece is over 50%. They're losing a whole generation of people. If we copy and follow European economics, we will copy and follow European results. That's the path that President Obama has us on, and that's the path we're going to get off but when we elect Mitt Romney on November the 6th. Now, your share, that young person with the elephant costume on, every man, woman, and child's share of the national debt was $36,000 when President Obama came into office. Now, 4 years of failed leadership of empty promises, it's gone up 45%. It's $51,000. That is the share of debt that every single person has. Every child born into this society, into our community, into Wisconsin, starts off 51 grand in the red. That's something we simply cannot afford. We cannot afford to keep piling this debt on to our children and our grandchildren. We can't keep doing this because what it does is it hurts our economy today and it destroys it tomorrow. It says to all those small businesses who create our jobs, today's big deficits is nothing more than tomorrow's big tax increase. It says that because of the Federal Reserve and all their money printing, that we might just have a big inflation problem down the road. It says that we'll have higher interest rates because people like China won't keep lending us their money at such low interest rates if we don't show that we're getting our fiscal situation under control. It hurts jobs today, it destroys jobs tomorrow, and we need to fix this problem before it gets out of our control. Now, I want to thank you for coming out today. I want to thank you for coming out today, and let's just have a good old-fashioned listening session and town hall meeting. So let me just ask for a show of hands. We'll go around. We've got people with microphones, so please give me your hands, and let's have a good old-fashioned town hall meeting. And then let's just wait for the microphone. How about this lady over here? And then just wait for the microphone to come to you, and then we'll just move all around.
Sven Ryan, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. I'm sure everybody here really appreciates it.
Thank you.
Have a question as far as with prescription medications and how it fits in with the plan that you and Governor Romney have.
So it also is in Medicare you're talking about as well, right? So if you take a look at Obamacare, one of the studies that have come out since Obamacare passed is that Obamacare actually raised the price of prescriptions. Our interest is not raising prescription prices, it's keeping prices lower. One thing we learned, though, about the Part D prescription drug program, it is a program that is often called premium support. So here's what happened. The prescription drug program was designed in a way that gives the senior citizen, the Medicare beneficiary, the right to choose the plan that's right for her. So she is the nucleus of the prescription drug program. What that means is she gets to pick the plan that she likes. If she doesn't like her plan this year, she can get rid of it and get another plan next year. These plans, they can't cherry pick. They have to take all comers, and we force prescription drug providers to compete against each other for her business. And we subsidize her premiums based on who she is. Total coverage if she's low income, good coverage if she's middle income, not as much coverage if she's a higher income person. And what this has done has brought cost below what we thought it would be by 41%. Name me another program that came in 41% below cost projections than this one. I mean, usually when government passes a new program, the costs go way up. This one didn't. Why is that? Because she is in charge. And these providers have to compete against each other for her business. That brought prices down. That brought prescription drugs down. That brought premiums down. That is precisely the kind of lesson that we have learned that we want to apply to the rest of Medicare for my generation. Here's the deal. You know, I look at my mom's. It's a perfect example. After my dad died, she got on a bus every day to go to Madison. She got a new degree to get a new skill. She started a small business, you know, no more than 3 employees at any one time, I think. And she paid all her payroll taxes on the promise that Medicare would be there for her. It is. That's a promise we simply must keep. And what we've learned is we can keep that promise for my mom's generation, for those who are within 10 years of retiring, if you reform it for my generation. Let's never forget, right now, that Medicare is making tens of trillions of dollars of promises to people that it has no means of paying for. It's not a partisan thing, it's a math thing. You got 10,000 people retiring each and every day, the baby boomers, and they're going to be doing so for 20 years. But because these are pay-as-you-go programs, my payroll taxes pay for my mom's Medicare, you have a 100% increase in the Medicare beneficiaries, but only a 17% increase in taxpayers coming into the program. For all of those of you who had kids in the 50s and 60s, you did a great job. You had a whole bunch of them. But our birth rates have declined since then. Our population is different. And so when this program, Medicare, grows at 8% a year, and we're doubling the amount of retirees on it, that creates a real fiscal problem. And so President Obama's answer is this. First, take $716 billion from Medicare to pay for Obamacare. Mark my words. Listen to the president's chief actuary. You can't spend the same dollar twice. You can't say, I'm taking $716 billion from the Medicare program from providers, and spending it on Obamacare and say that that is good for Medicare, that goes to Medicare. It doesn't. The second thing he does, and this is the more, I think, dangerous proposal of Obamacare, is it puts 15 people in charge of Medicare that he appoints next year. The law doesn't even require that they have any medical training. 15 people, and they're in charge. They get a 6-year term, renewable once, and they are required each and every year, starting in 2014, to cut Medicare payments to providers in ways that lead to denied care for current seniors. So the philosophy, the difference is this. We want to get rid of that Medicare board. We want to stop the rate of Medicare. We believe the best way to save Medicare, the best way to lower prescription prices is to repeal Obamacare. And just what we're proposing is this. It's not unlike the kind of plan I have as a congressman or a federal employee. It works like that prescription drug program. For people 54 and below, when they become Medicare eligible, you get a list of guaranteed choices, guaranteed plans that are comprehensive, you can't be denied, including traditional Medicare. You pick your plan. They compete against each other for your business, just like we do with the prescription drug program. You pick the plan you like, and then Medicare subsidizes your premiums. 100% out-of-pocket coverage if you're low income or sick. The same kind of coverage you have that middle-income seniors have today, and not as much for higher-income people. Doing it this way, using choice and competition, putting the patient as the center of the equation, not 15 bureaucrats in Washington, is the best way to save and strengthen Medicare, to prevent it from going bankrupt for my generation, and it's the best way to secure this program with no changes for my mom's generation. That is exactly how we propose not to just fix the prescription issue, but to save Medicare from bankruptcy. Another question. How about the guy in the hat right there? Wait for the mic if you don't mind. Yeah.
Why are there ballots not getting to our servicemen and women?
You know, of our government, in this case our state government, the GAB, not Scott, you can't selectively enforce our election laws. You can't selectively enforce voting rights. And of all the people who have a right to vote, it's our men and women in uniform, especially those that are overseas serving us right now. Of all the people who deserve this right, we've had to go to the length, our campaign, of having to bring a lawsuit to make sure that these men and women who are getting their absentee ballots, who are serving in military, who are overseas, have enough time to be able to return their ballots so that their votes are counted. We're in court right now trying to guarantee that our men and women serving in military have this right preserved for them. And I got to tell you, we've got to win this case, because if there's anything that counts, it's your right to vote. Because if a single soldier is denied his or her right to vote, that's a shame. That's not what we can stand for in this country. They're out there fighting for our freedoms right now. They're out there securing our right to vote. The least we can do is give them enough time, because their ballots got to them late, to make sure that their ballots come back and that they are counted. How about any ladies? How about the gentleman right there? Is there a mic over here?
Honor, best of luck to you as our next Vice President.
Thank you.
There was a time in American history when our country term limited the presidency. Would you and Governor Romney consider a proposal to term limit the members of Congress? Example, 2 6-year terms for our U.S. senators and 6 2-year terms for a member of Congress.
Yeah, I co-sponsored that when I was in Congress originally. I agree with that. I've always supported that in Congress. That takes a constitutional amendment. What you don't want to do is have a state do it to itself and shortchange its seniority and its clout in Congress. But I've always been a fan of term limits. I've always supported that. I've always believed that this should be something that you serve temporary, not for an entire lifetime. Look, but what we have right now in front of us is a crisis of leadership. What we have right now in front of us is this debt clock spinning out of control, is a government that is borrowing and spending money we don't have. And right now, we got to fix this problem. And I do believe that we've got to change the mindset that is too many politicians, like President Obama, and there are a lot of people like him in Washington, are more worried about their next election than they are about the next generation. That's got to change. But also electing leaders like Scott Walker, people like Becky Clayfish and Alberta Darling, that does it too. So yes, I've always agreed with that notion. How about over here? How about this lady right here in the red? Oh, wait for a mic if you don't mind. No one can hear you otherwise. That's all right. He'll come right to you.
Congressman, I've had the pleasure of meeting you 3 years ago at a SOS summit. You took a meeting with me. You sat down with your aides. I don't know if you remember me, but my husband served 26 years as a Green Beret and died. He died from Gulf War syndrome. And you took the time, a half hour of your busy schedule, to sit down with a little old widow like me, and you cared. And I called my mom and dad right after that meeting, and I said, Mom, I think I just met a future president. Well, I just wanted to share that story because it meant so much to me.
Thank you. Thank you for your sacrifice. For what you, I do remember meeting you.
It meant a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How about the guy in the red back there? I keep picking on people with red. It's like a Badger thing, I guess. Sorry. I'll go green and gold next.
Thank you again. I'm a union electrician, okay? What I would like to know, every day I get these mass mailings from our union
IBEW?
representatives. Yep. Anyway, you know, and guys at work, you know, of course, half of them are one way and half are the other. But these, what can I tell them, or what can you tell, you know, hardworking union people who, for whatever reason, support this failed policy we've been through? What can we do in the future? What are you going to do for guys like me, for the working stiffs?
It's a great question. Look, thank you for being a working stiff. You got to have jobs, right? We want a growing economy. And when you tax something more, you get less of it. When you tax something less, you get more of it. So if you tax families and small businesses more, you get less take-home pay for that family, you get less income for that small business, and you get less jobs. If you lower tax rates for families, they get more take-home pay. They can get ahead. They can save. They can start planning for the future. And if you lower tax rates for businesses, then they have more for their business to expand, to create more jobs. This is not a new idea. Jack Kennedy did this, and it created jobs. When Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill did this in the 80s, it unleashed unprecedented economic growth. That was in the 20th century. We are in the 21st century. Here is one of our problems. We are in fierce global competition. And so it's not just, you know, an electrician working for a general contractor, working on a school or something like this. It's the fact that most of our businesses pay their taxes as individuals. In Wisconsin, 9 out of 10 businesses pay their taxes as individuals. Drive around any one of our cities, and just go up and down 43. You will see industrial park after industrial park after industrial park. And in each one of those industrial parks is a business. 5 employees, 50 employees, 250 employees. 9 out of 10 of those businesses. When they expand, they hire electricians. They hire general contractors. They build things. They pay their taxes as individuals. President Obama is promising, it's coming in current law, that if he's reelected in January, their effective top tax rate goes to 44.8%. Put it this way, you throw the Wisconsin income tax on top of the new federal income tax that our manufacturers and our small businesses pay, and we are going to be taxing our businesses at such higher tax rates than our foreign competitors tax theirs. And here's what happens. When your foreign competitors are getting taxed at a much lower rate than you are, they win, we lose. Overseas, which to us means Lake Superior, right? Oh. The Canadians, they just lowered their tax rate to all of their businesses to 15% last January. The average tax rate on businesses in the industrialized world is 25%. President Obama is saying, let's raise it above 40%. What that means is less money for our businesses to expand, but much higher tax rates that kills their ability to compete. This tax increase that he's talking about, it doesn't even pay for 10% of his proposed deficit spending increases. So this notion that we can just tax a few people, he wants you to think it's some Wall Street tycoon or, you know, Ryan Braun or some movie star. It's really the businesses that create our jobs. This tax increase hits over half of small business income. It's 1 million small businesses, and this tax increase is expected to lose us 710,000 jobs. What Mitt and I are proposing is a 5-point plan for stronger economic growth, for a stronger middle class. It starts with championing small businesses, lower tax rates across the board by 20%, and you know, they keep talking about what loopholes. Look at the top 2 tax bracket payers. They're the ones who get most of the tax write-offs, the most of the loopholes. That means a lot of their income is sheltered from taxation. Take away those tax shelters, more of their income is subject to taxation, which allows us to lower tax rates for everybody across the board, for families, for middle-income families, for successful small businesses. There's enough room to make sure that families have these things that encourage home ownership, charitable giving, health care, and savings. The point is this. We don't have a tax problem in Washington. We have a spending problem in Washington. We got to get our spending under control. And I got to tell you, for the IBEW, for pipe fitters, for manufacturers, for excavators, I know the operating engineer as well because that's a business I'm familiar with, the earth moving business. My cousins run an earth moving business in Janesville. The president personally intervened to stop the Keystone Pipeline from coming into this country. That one project would have given us tens of thousands of good union jobs, tens of thousands of good jobs of pipe fitters, of pipeline makers, of pipeline construction jobs, and would have brought that Canadian oil into America instead of going to China, where it will go if we don't use it. Our second plank is we have got all this energy in North America. Let's use that energy in North America. That puts people back to work. That creates jobs for electricians. That creates jobs for manufacturers. That lowers the price of gas. That lowers the price of home heating. That lowers the price of electricity. That creates jobs. We can be North American energy independent by the end of this decade if we set our minds to it. That's precisely what we're proposing to do. And there are a lot of people who are in between jobs. Janesville, we've got a lot of people who are in between jobs. We've got great technical schools here in Wisconsin. We've got great training facilities at some of our union. I've been out to the laborers to see this fantastic training facility those guys have. We need to have a system where people can get the skills they need if they're in between jobs or if they're working a temporary job so they can get back on their feet so they can get the careers that they want in the 21st century. We need to fix our schools. We need to make sure that job training is there for people who are in between jobs. We've got to get this deficit under control. And we've got to make sure, given the fact that 95% of the world's consumers live overseas, we've got to open up markets to our products so we can make more things in America, grow more things in America, and sell them overseas. Those are the kinds of things that we're going to do to create jobs. We do these 5 things. We grow the economy around 4% a year. We create 12 million jobs over the next 4 years. Specifics, go to our website and see. Specific pro-growth solutions to grow the economy, to create jobs so people have higher take-home pay, so people have better jobs so they can get ahead instead of falling behind like so many people are in society today. Two more. How about the young guy over here? It's neither red nor green or gold.
Hi, I'm 13, and I was wondering, by the time I'm ready to buy a house, will the economy be turned around?
Help us. You can knock on doors, you can make phone calls, you can't vote, but the answer is we can turn this around if we put the right leaders in place, if we put the right ideas in place. We can get this economy turned around. You know, I met a guy in Kentucky the other day. He was telling me about his dream was to be able to buy a house for his family. He started a restaurant. It started going well. Then he tried to open a few more. Store number 2, 3, 4, bankrupt, bankrupt, bankrupt. His restaurants were going down. They weren't working. He and his family had to move into his parents' basement. His dream was to be able to just own his own home, to put a roof over his family by himself. He failed at this dream 3 times, but he kept working at it because in America, if you first don't succeed, you try again. This guy started a restaurant called Texas Roadhouse. We got one of these in Janesville, and he has become phenomenally successful because he kept working at it. He failed, he failed, he failed. He kept working at it because he knew that in this country, if you just work hard enough, you can get ahead. If you work hard, you play by the rules, you can get ahead. And now he has a really nice house for his family. The point is, we have the most dynamic society, the most exceptional country, and we can have the fastest growing economy that produces the most prosperity. The American idea, the American system of liberty and free enterprise has done more to help the poor, has done more to give people access to opportunities so people and to restore the right to rise than any other economic system ever designed. Why would we want to replace it? We want to revitalize it. We want to revive it so you can have a shot at the American dream. That means get ahead of our problems. I have no doubt in my mind that we can turn this economy around, we can get it growing fast, and we can start creating jobs literally next year. You know what's in front of us? We have a blockade. We have a president who said he'd do all these things, and he's broken these promises. We have a president who, of all the broken promises, has said that he'd bring people together to solve the country's problems. It's the most partisan atmosphere we've ever had. We have a president who believes that borrowing and spending, regulating and money printing, and raising taxes is the secret to economic success. We know that that doesn't work. Look at Europe. It's not working there. So we need a new president. And we have a president in Mitt Romney who will be a good president. You know why he's going to be a good president? This man, of all the things about Mitt Romney we know, leadership is the first thing that comes to mind. This man is a leader. He turned around the Olympics. He turned around his state. He brought both parties together to cut taxes 19 times, to balance the budget without raising taxes. This man is a successful job creator. And by the way, being successful in business, that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. We have a jobs crisis. Wouldn't it be nice to have a job creator in the White House? He helped create tens of thousands of jobs. So the answer is yes. Because you know why I'm so confident to answer your question, yes? Because we're going to win this election. Those 10 electoral votes in Wisconsin are going to go to Mitt Romney. We're going to turn our state around. We're going to turn our country around. Just like when we won, Scott Walker won this election, we're going to win it here. And that means we're going to turn this state around. We're going to get this economy growing. We're going to help people get back into the middle class. And you will be able to buy the house you want because you'll have opportunities to make your life what you want it to be. That's it. You got to wrap it? One more? All right. How about this? Another young guy right here. Okay, one more. He's telling me I got one more. All right. How about this guy right here? Is there a mic?
Thank you. I I'm a student here at Carroll, and I'll be graduating in 2 years, and when you look at the unemployment rate for college graduates, it's devastating. So what will you and Mitt Romney do to help young adults succeed in this economy?
So look at where you are. You're halfway through college. The last 4 years, we have seen public university college tuition go up 25%. That's an incredible inflation rate. You see student loan debt hitting $1 trillion right now. So you're coming out of school with a massive debt. You know, when I came out of school, I worked 3 jobs to live, to pay my loans, but my loans were, they were reasonable. People are coming out of school with a mountain of debt and no opportunities. As I mentioned before, 50% of college graduates today are either not working in the field that they studied or working at all. Right now, we got 5.5 million people who are out of work and stopped looking for work. They just gave up. We don't even count them anymore. They're not even factored into the unemployment rate. If we counted our government, if our government counted the people, those 5.5 million, our unemployment rate would be closer to 11% today. The thing that is so crucial is economic growth. Growth, growth, growth. What does that mean? As I was mentioning to this gentleman in the IBEW, this electrician, that's precisely what our 5-point plan is all about. Energy policy to create jobs, to lower the cost of energy. That stands in stark contrast to President Obama. He's shutting down federal lands. He's over-regulating the new technologies to get oil and gas. He is shutting down permitting in the Outer Continental Shelf. He's shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. He has this national energy tax that he wants to put in place to raise taxes on everyone's energy consumption. That kills jobs. We got to make sure that when you come out of school with the skills that you've learned, that you come into an economy where there are opportunities. That means economic growth. And to grow the economy, lower tax rates, sound regulations, sound money. Get government to live within its means so this debt crisis doesn't haunt us. And if we get ahead of this problem, if America elects real leaders to address this problem, to prevent this debt crisis, to get our budget on the path to balance, to bring our tax rates down, to stop picking winners and losers in Washington like they do in the Obama administration, then we will get ahead of this problem. We will be the port in the storm in the global economy. And that means our economy will grow. You get a job coming out of college if you're coming out in a growing economy. If businesses are expanding and they're taking risks and they're hiring more people. That's the secret to it. It isn't rocket science. It is get this economy growing. That's precisely what we're proposing. And just take a look at Mitt Romney's record. This is a man who knows how businesses work. This is a man whose business for 25 years was turning around struggling companies, was starting tough, growing businesses. He created businesses like Staples, Sports Authority, Bright Horizons, Steel Dynamics. He knows what it takes to create jobs. He knows the barriers that are making it harder for small businesses to create jobs. 2/3 of our jobs in America come from small businesses. And right now we have a president that is putting barrier against barrier on top of barrier in front of businesses so that when you come out of school, you're coming into an economy that's barely limping along right now. Because of the president's lack of leadership, we have this fiscal cliff coming, which if it actually happens, the budget crunchers in Washington are telling us we'll have another recession. That's because of a fundamental lack of leadership. Leadership turns this around. Leadership that embraces those great qualities that made America great, that makes our economy grow, means we get back on a path of growth and opportunity. So in 2 years, when you come out of college, you're coming out into a growing economy, and you have a future to look forward to. You don't have a debt that's going to crush your success in the future, and you have an economy that's growing so that you can get an opportunity. That's the secret to success. The secret to growth isn't Washington pick winners and losers. Washington takes more money from your family, from the businesses, and spends it and borrows it. Washington gets out of the way so that you can succeed, so that businesses can grow. We have to have the right rules. We have to have a good regulatory system. We have to have a government that lives within its means. And we have to have a government that respects the fact that if a person has a small business, they built that small business. They're the ones who did the sweating and the toiling and the working hard. They're the ones that built this country. That mindset will be restored on November the 7th. That's what we need to do to help you get an opportunity. Look, I just want to say to everybody, here at home. It's so good to be home, by the way. It's great to see the Packers on a streak, six touchdowns. But we here in Wisconsin, we have an obligation. We are what we call a targeted state. That means we have an obligation, we have a responsibility, and we have a great opportunity. We have shown and we have seen what courage looks like. Look at that man right there, Scott Walker. Look at these state legislators. That's what courage looks like. And in Wisconsin, we have shown that if leaders step up and lead, we as voters have their backs. We haven't dedicated our electoral votes since 1984 to the Republican nominee. It is time we change that. Let's make sure that we win Wisconsin. Let's get out to the polls. Let's get people there. We are on a winning streak here in Wisconsin. Let's keep that winning streak going. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless you all. Let's get this done. Thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate you coming out today. Thank you.